Welcome back to the Leaner, Stronger, and Confident as Fuck podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be revisiting three incredible transformation stories: Sandra, Mara, and Anu. Now, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you might remember these ladies sharing their stories, but I wanted to bring elements of their stories back to the front of your mind right now, because their journeys are such an amazing reminder of what is possible for you when you focus on a phased approach to your nutrition and your training. Now, all three of these women started in the same place that I know so many of you who are listening to this podcast will be in right now. Doing lots of cardio, eating low calories, working really, really hard, but not seeing the results that you want. And I know you're going to resonate with bits of each of their stories. Sandra was eating 1,500 calories and working out 6 to 7 times a week for years and practically seeing nothing change. Mara had tried every single fad diet under the sun and was smashing classes on the Peloton, thinking more restriction and just working out harder was going to be the answer. And Anu was nervous about lifting heavier in the gym and obsessed with what the scale was or wasn't doing, and stuck in a cycle of always trying to eat low calories and just wondering why nothing was working. So maybe some or all of that sounds familiar to you. And what changed everything for them was that they stopped dieting endlessly and they started working through proper nutritional phases: primer, fat loss, maintenance, and building muscle. This is what I refer to as the full transformation cycle. And then we coupled that as well with proper training to build and retain muscle, not just working out to burn calories. Now, Sandra is over 9 kilos down. She's at her lowest weight since her 30s and now maintaining her physique on more than 2,000 calories. Mara is the healthiest and strongest that she's ever been at 41, and Anu has completely transformed her relationship with food, training, and her body. So today I'm going to be sharing bits and pieces from their stories again, because if you are feeling stuck in the same way, I want you to hear what is possible. And this is the exact process that we follow inside Lean Body Blueprint. And a reminder that LBB is opening for enrollment again in a couple of days from when this is going live on Monday, April the 6th. We officially kick off the program a week later on April the 13th. But make sure you are on the priority list before Monday, because by being on that list, you will get access to not only the early bird discount, but also an exclusive bonus. The link to join the priority list is in the show notes below. And as you listen to these incredible transformations, just let their stories sink in, pick up the nuggets of wisdom that you need to apply in your own journey, and listen to what is possible when you stop just doing more and more and more, adding more discipline, more push to the problem, and instead start learning how to work with your body and with your metabolism with proper training and nutrition. So let's dive in. And just a reminder as well that I spoke to all of these ladies on Instagram Live. And so if the audio is a little bit funny at times, that is why. But the gold that they share is 100% worth listening to. So let's dive in.
Hi, I'm Sandra. I'm from Huskisson in New South Wales.
What I just wanted to start off by doing was just for you to tell us a little bit about what were you doing before you came and joined LBB, Lean Body Blueprint, in terms of your exercise and your nutrition, and what kind of were you feeling stuck on?
Right, yeah. So I'd never really had a weight problem most of my life. Like, I always sat around 65 kilos right through my 20s and 30s. I was always a very active person and ate well because I've got food allergies. So I always, eat fresh and all the rest of it. So I never really went to the gym because I never felt I needed to. I was a comfortable 10, 12 size and all was good. Then I turned 40. And things changed. I noticed weight was starting to creep on despite nothing changing. By the time I'd hit mid to late 40s, I was now 10 kilos heavier than what I was my whole life. And I felt terribly uncomfortable in my clothes. I wouldn't look in the mirror, let alone sideways in the mirror. That was terrifying. And, so I thought mid to late 40s, I joined the gym. I went, all right, got to do something about this. Obviously, my life needs to change. So off to F45 I go and joined that. And, it was all fun and games to start with. And then I did their first few challenges where you do the dreaded body scan and, and pretty deflating when it comes back to say you're pre-obese. Nothing like kicking a girl while she's down. So we did some challenges, but to me, nothing changed because I was already eating clean and active. I was just adding more cardio to my days. So my body scans would stay the same. I never really changed. And this went on for challenge after challenge after challenge. And the messaging always was, if you're in a 500 calorie deficit, you will lose weight. And I'm like, well, no, you don't, because I'm in a deficit. You know, I was not eating a whole lot. I was around 1,400 calories. I was training 7 days a week, sometimes twice, because they would say, do more. You need to do more, go walking. And I'd be doing 10,000 steps a day. And they'd say, oh, no, 10,000 straight steps. You've got to do them all in one go. So, yeah, I know. So I'm pounding the footpath, going to the gym, feeling exhausted, not sleeping. Anyway, so after, things not changing for quite some time, I took myself off to a dietitian. And the dietitian said to me, you're not eating enough. And I was like, oh, my God, what do you mean I'm not eating enough? Like, I'm trying to lose weight. I don't want to eat more. And she's like, well, you need to eat more. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, you've got the degree. So home I go and I start eating more, just, shoveling it in. And, of course, the scales jump up. So quit that. That's not working. Back to plan A again. And then I went on the keto path. And keto did work for a short period of time, but it was a lifestyle I couldn't sustain. It was just it's not doable long term. But I did see, some shifts on the scales. So once I stopped keto, of course, back up it came, and I just couldn't get rid of that 77 on the scales. It seemed to be like, that's it. You're in menopause, that's it. You just get fat. Like, you can't do anything about it. It's just a hormone journey and all the rest of it. Then on, the never-ending scrolling looking for the answers, I came across your page, the Lean Body Blueprint, and you had a thing where you could join up to hear the master or the master class on it. Yeah, is that what it was called, the master class? Went for about 90 minutes. And so in with the earbuds off, I went for my 10,000 steps and I just found myself going, oh, my God, yes, that's they're all the missing pieces. And what you were saying just resonated with me. And I thought, this just makes sense. And because I had pieces of the puzzle, but I didn't know, the why and the how. Yeah. So I couldn't wait then to join you in September when you launched that one. And of course, you said to me, you're not eating enough, and into a reverse diet. And I thought reverse diet was for your bodybuilders and things like that. So, but not only.
And maybe let's stop actually here to tell other people what it is that we started doing, because we're not gatekeeping here.
Yeah.
Well, I can't fit a 90-minute masterclass into the few minutes that we've got together. Let's at least kind of say to people, what did we start to do, and what did I share in that masterclass, and what does everyone who starts my program pretty much start with?
So we
have to figure out what is someone actually doing first. And so I got you to track your calories, just eating whatever you were eating normally for like 2 weeks. And it came back with you eating on average 1,300. I just looked at the figures, like 1,350 calories on week 1. And the next week it was on average 1,450 calories. Yeah. And this should, exactly to your point earlier, put someone in a massive calorie deficit from their maintenance. But the problem is, if we keep just trying to eat at deficit calories, at low calories, at some point, our metabolism is just going to adapt to the signals that we are sending it. And that means that over time, a long period of time, this can then just become your adapted maintenance calories, which means that you're not going to see any changes if you continue to eat at that amount. So what we want to do is we want to, first of all, get anyone who's listening to this, if you're not seeing results, the first thing you have to do is to start to build up to your optimal maintenance calories again. So this was the process that I took you on, wasn't it, Sandra, when you joined? We tracked your food and we were like, you are not in a position to lose fat right now, but you will be if we do this next step. So 100%. You actually spent like the first 4 months of the program. Yeah. 4 and a bit months building yourself back up from 1,450 calories. And tell us what you got to by building.
I got to 2,300 calories in the end. Yeah. And I could have probably gone a bit longer, but I was just starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So that's when I asked you, and you said, "Yep, I was doing, hitting all my targets and doing well." But I did it in 50 calories a week, so I
Yeah.
did it quite slow as
Yeah.
well. So
And so this is
and
an important part of the process
yeah,
as well. We don't want to go, and this is what you were mentioning earlier when the diet's
yeah,
you need to eat more. If you just kind of say, okay, well, my optimal maintenance might be, a calculator says 2,300. If you just
mm,
start doing that
mm,
without doing it slowly, then you will put your body into a surplus because it hasn't had time to adjust. So we did it
yeah,
really gradually while
yes,
also focusing on proper weight training so you could build muscle in this phase.
yes,
Focusing on getting enough protein, learning how to, include foods that work for you, that you
mm,
enjoy. And we stepped it up slowly. And I just
yes,
had a look at the your data before we jumped on, and Sandra's given me permission to share this as well. Very generous. So Sandra actually started at 77 kilos, and at the end of her reverse, going up from 1,450 calories to 2,300, she actually
mm,
lost 1.5 kilos and
yes,
also saw changes in your measurements.
yes,
And there was a bit when we were at the peak of the reverse, because once you kind of get to the top of your reverse, you're in like the optimal maintenance period, where I remember you kind of like, oh, gee, before we even get there, I just want to kind of, because I'm sure the idea of doing that to some people is terrifying. So let's
it
just
was.
rewind a little bit. How did you feel, Sandra, when we were I was like, let's set our goal as 2,300. Like,
Yeah, well, I thought, wow, I've just got to embrace this journey and trust it because I've tried everything else and it wasn't working, and I just believed in it. So I did it. I just did it slowly, and I think that was great. Just doing it gradually, my body, yeah, responded beautifully. I had more energy. I was sleeping better. I enjoyed eating a bit more because I was, for 5 or 6 years really deprived,
yeah.
and eating low. Yeah, long periods of no food.
And
Mm.
we also made a shift to your training because I remember
Yes.
at the very beginning when you joined, I said to you, are you doing the
Mm.
workouts that I give you, which is 3 full body strength sessions a week, which you
Yes.
can do at home or in the gym? And I think you were still finishing a 45 at the very beginning,
Yeah, I was
maybe.
I was still hanging in there doing a little bit of F45, and then I think I messaged you and said,
Yeah.
is 3 days going to be enough? Because I'd gone from such a high volume to I felt 3 days. What am I going to do with all this extra time?
That was one of your questions, wasn't it?
Yeah,
You were
it
like, what
was.
do I do with this
What
extra
am I, what
days?
am
I
I
was
going to
like,
do now?
enjoy yourself,
And
do
then
whatever you want.
yeah, no, I'm a great believer. If you're going to take something on, do it at 100%. And if you do it as per the script, you'll get the results. And so I, cancelled the gym membership, cancelled the Pilates membership, and just do my 3 days a week plus my steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
And
it. That's it.
and in the program as well, like with the weight training one that you do, it's focused on full body 3 times
Yes.
a week so that you get ample recovery, so you can focus on building muscle.
Yeah.
And at the end of that process, like I said, you were actually 1.5 kilos down. You'd
Yes.
seen reductions in your measurements. And you were definitely having a moment where you were like, oh my God, 2,300 calories. This feels like a lot of food for me. We saw a tiny little spike up of the scale again, which I know
Yeah.
you were having a little bit of like, oh my God, is it going to start going up again? But I
Yeah.
was just like, hang tight. We're going to be going into fat loss very,
Yeah.
very soon. And so, first of all, like the patience that you showed and commitment to, like I said, just trusting that side of the process is
Mm.
like amazing. And
Yeah.
as a result of you doing that, you've now been in a fat loss phase since I think it was like mid-January, mid or late January.
Yeah, I think it was beginning of February. Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
And now, do you want to
Mm.
share results that you've seen since you've been into fat loss?
Oh, it's just been amazing. So today I'm currently at 69.4, and I haven't seen that since I was in my 30s. So yeah, it's been a long, long time. And truly I thought, being in menopause, perimenopause, I thought it was not achievable, especially around my tummy where, we tend to put weight on, and my stomach now looks, nice and flat sort of side on. And yeah, I feel great. I feel absolutely great. And I think, yeah, it's just been the best journey, and it's my last journey.
Yeah.
I'm not going back to gyms. This will be my, forever. now,
The good
the
thing is
Lean Body Bootcamp. Yeah.
achievable forever because it's three
Yeah.
times a week. It's not,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
can't stick with 7 days a week trying to do 2 times a day for like a long time without burning out, even though you did actually do it a long time.
I did do it a long time, but I'm pretty sure I was burnt out. Yeah. Yeah. And having all the extra time on my hands now, with grandkids and my horses and everything else. Yeah. 3 days a week, it's very achievable. It's just over, well, 3 hours of work, and the results are phenomenal.
Hi everyone, I'm Mara. I'm 41. I'm based in California in the Bay Area. I've got two young boys, Levi and Luca, who are 7 and 4, and a 42-year-old husband, I guess. And all three of them keep me very, very busy.
Can you share a bit about what you were struggling with before we started working together and exactly why you kind of felt things weren't clicking before then?
I went through the classic cycle of, those 7 days, drop 7 pounds. I've gone through all of the different fads, like all celery diet, fasting for 4 days, juice cleanses. Even there was like an apple diet where like all you eat were apple products. And back then I was like, oh yes, like apples are hydrating. Of course that makes sense. But there's just not a ton of support for female health and education from a nutrition standpoint back then. Back then, it was like 20 years ago. But that was hard because I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the knowledge or education. And back then, if I'm being super honest, I probably didn't have the level of commitment either. What mattered more to me was aesthetics over health. And so that was what was challenging back then.
And tell us a bit about the exercise you're doing as well, because it was a bit different to what we started doing together as well.
Oh my gosh. I was such a Barry's boot camp bunny because I thought the harder and the harder you work, the more you sweat was equaled success or like pounds dropped. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna go on a girls' trip. I'm gonna spend, I would go to the gym every day and spend an hour and a half every day just on the elliptical. That's it.
So much of what you're saying, I'm like, yep, I did that, I did that, I did that. And so many people that I work with as well. And so, if anyone's listening to this, resonating with it, please know that you're not alone. So many of us have been there. And that's one of the reasons that I'm like, you know what, this is one of the reasons that I know that I'm a good coach, because I have done all the mistakes myself. I can see them, I've been through them, and as well as obviously having some credentials, it's why I think I can help other people through them. So let's dive into what we actually started doing. And do you want to kind of say a little bit in your own words about how the way that we approach things was a bit different to what you've done before?
Yes. So I remember just from a nutrition standpoint, I thought I would have to be like extremely rigid and to track all the macros. But then you are like, no, no, let's just start small. Let's just build the right foundations first and get really solid on that, and then we will increase. And I was like, what? I only have to care about protein and calories? I can do that. And I think I had been so used to doing those extremely complicated, arduous plans where it's like, those 14 drop weight fast kind of plans that you could buy an ebook for $25 or something. Um, and so in my mind, that's what I thought I had to do for months on end, and to have a coach to keep me accountable to that. But that's not the way, actually, that we started. And we started small. We started with getting a little bit more movement in. I have a full-time tech job, and so I'm literally sitting in front of my screens right now, but incorporating more movement into my daily routine was what we worked on first. And just kind of like understanding where I am right now, my starting point, and then building from there.
Yeah. And so we actually, because I remember when we started together, feel like I want to get strong. I want to, like, you know, feel healthy. Like, it was all about that. And then we started working together, and you were like, oh, by the way, it's my 40th birthday in a few months. And I also want to feel amazing for that. And we were like, okay, hang on a second. This was a nugget that wasn't shared before. And so we kind of like changed the plan a little bit to get you kind of like feeling amazing while also working on those things for your 40th. So do you want to kind of maybe share a little bit about that first goal that we worked on? And because we didn't just launch straight into a diet first either, did we?
No, so I think we had a period of I think you call it the primer
Yeah, like a
phase.
primer phase. Yeah.
Um And so that was just sort of getting into the habit of um, just doing the key things, just support my body, getting enough water, getting enough kind of just daily movement, and just being more mindful about how different foods make me feel, and being more mindful about not just Kathy knows this, but my cravings go insane during my cycle. And so just being mindful of not that it's like a bad or a good thing, it's just being mindful that it happens. So just being more in tune with my body, that normally I'm like so on the go that I don't pay attention. I'm the last one on my list to prioritize. And so that helped me kind of reframe that, like, if I'm going to, there's this phrase of like, you would die for your kids, but would you live for them and like live a healthy life? And
Yeah.
so that's kind of what I tuned into.
Yeah. And so because we actually discovered as well from like when we first did your kind of like discovery phase that you were eating already kind of like 1400 calories, which you are a petite person. For anyone who's watching, you know, won't obviously know Mara's stats like we both do, but Mara is very petite. So 1400 calories might seem really, really low for some people, but it's not as low for, you know, more petite people. But we were like, this is not a foundation to cut from. Like, no matter how tall you are, like, this is not a great kind of foundation to create a deficit from. So those first couple of months, we actually spent time increasing your calories, I think more than you'd kind of ate for like a long period of time, while also like making sure we were working on that strength training to like build muscle, so that then when we actually went into that cut, and that's kind of the purpose of that primer phase, in addition to the things that Mara's already shared about habits and all of those things, so that then when we actually do go into a cut, your body is in a responsive place. And so then we got some great results, which, you know, like, I mean, I was looking back at kind of what you achieved for your 40th, and you just kind of like certainly like felt the way you wanted to feel, but I don't want to put words in your mouth for your 40th. So you want to kind of share a little bit about that first?
Yes, definitely. I definitely felt so much stronger overall. I remember there's periods of times where, you know, back then my youngest was 3 and I would struggle to carry him from the car to school. And I'm like, oh God, I'm winded. And then after, I don't know, maybe it was just a couple months, it's like, oh, did he lose weight? Like, I got this. This is great. And so just from a strength perspective, it's just the benefits have been just so apparent, to the point where my husband was like, "Oh, can you help me lift this couch?" And I'm like, "Okay, yes, yes, I can actually." And and then for my 40th, that's when we dropped into a cut. And of course, like, having a 40th birthday, we did a pool party, so being in a bikini is like really, really great motivation overall. But there's been so many times where I was like, I just want a slice of pizza, but knowing that I have Kathy to be accountable for, not that she's like, you got to do this, but um uh you've got just such a great way about saying, like, well, like, here are the things that need to happen, here are the results, and kind of like guiding me to it and just supporting no matter what's going on in my life. And at that time I had an insane travel schedule.
Yeah.
And so helping to manage through life while still hitting my goals was insane. But I ended up achieving exactly what I wanted. I came to my 40th birthday under baby weight, like my pre-baby weight, and it was a great time.
So we've actually been through a reverse from them to establish your results. Like you said, you've had work trips, you've gone on holidays, we've gone through another light cut, we've done a mini cut, we've spent time building muscle. And has that been something that you've ever done before in like previous kind of ways that you were doing things before we started working together?
No, I didn't even know that those sorts of things existed of different phases of nutrition and the concept of kind of getting my calories to either maintenance or a higher amount was so foreign to me, but it makes so much sense. So being able to just learn like the logic behind it and the science behind it was is so helpful. And I'm like constantly asking Kathy, like, so what about this? Or what does this actually mean? Or I saw this happen in, my stats, or why do you think that is? And so having just the knowledge behind it too just helps me better understand the reasons why, of course, but also just to inform like my choices moving forward. What was helpful for me was that I had I had a really strong motivator in like internally that I knew my goal was I wanted to feel the healthiest, the strongest, the fittest I've ever been for my 40th. I knew I had that specific goal, but combined with that, it was that I was ready to put in the work. I was sort of sick of feeling like my clothes were too tight, of feeling sleepy at 11 a.m. and struggling to pick up my kids. And I was just kind of tired of it. And I clearly knew I couldn't do it on my own after having tried and failed and then tried and failed. And like, okay, let me just try something new. And I know myself, I work really well in structure and kind of like an organized environment. So I'm like, I'm gonna find myself a coach. And then I found Kathy.
Yes. And 18 months later, plus we are still here. So tell everyone else, what is your kind of like what excites you about, where you're kind of like taking your next level of results?
I've just literally this morning when I was getting ready and I was thinking about our chat today, I was like, the most exciting thing is that throughout all of my Orange Theory, Barry's Boot Camp, HIT class, memberships, this right now is the healthiest, most fit I've ever felt in my life. And I'm like, if I can achieve that at 41, like the 50s sound great. I
Yeah.
think like age is no longer scary to me, and I love the example I'm showing to my kids where they see me spending time in our garage gym, or they see me making like adding a ton of veggies to my plate. They have yet to do that, but it's okay. They will one day.
They will
But
learn.
they'll get there. But yeah, just the fact that I feel so healthy and strong going into this kind of new stage of my life, I'm really proud of that.
I'm Anu, and I live in Hertfordshire in the UK, and I've been on a journey for the last sort of, I'd say, 18 months now. So when I started, I had been with somebody else, and I had lost a little bit of weight, but then as soon as I stopped, it all kind of came back on again. And I was like, this is not, sustainable. What do I do? And I was doing strength training. I was going to the gym. I was getting the steps in, and I wasn't seeing any change. And I thought, well, this is ridiculous. I've done deficits, and you're just going round and round in circles. So I was like, I need a change. I need to see where I'm going wrong. And that's when I sort of joined with Kathy. And I think I was a very reluctant learner at the beginning, because she would sort of say, no, you need to put your calories up. I said, no, I can't do. If I put my calories up, I'm going to get fat. What is this woman talking about? But she was like, no, trust. I kept saying, trust the process, trust the process. So that's what I did.
And so
Trust the
let's give
process.
everyone a bit of context about where your calories were at beforehand, because we'd actually connected like a few months before we started working
Yeah,
together, hadn't we? And at the time,
yeah.
I think you told me you'd been eating on 1350 or something like that for quite a while. Is that right?
So I was dropped to 1350 for the deficit. I was probably eating about 1500 on
Yeah.
a normal, regular basis, thinking that was what I needed.
Yeah. And so as I was explaining to Anu, like we might need to drop to those kind of calories. Who knows, in a fat loss phase, it all dependent obviously on the person. but we cannot live there. We cannot,
Yeah.
at the end of fat loss, just kind of continue to live at those low calories. And so that's what I was explaining to Annie when we first started together. I was like, we need to give you a break from low calories. We need to make sure your metabolism is in a good place to be able to tackle fat loss again. So we slowly but surely built your calories up from, I think we started at around that kind of like 1600 point, if
Yeah.
I remember correctly. And then we took a few weeks and we managed to get them up to 2100.
Yeah.
And that was an uncomfortable process, wasn't it? If we're quite
Very.
honest about how it was.
Very uncomfortable because I struggled eating that much food, and to be honest, I was surprised I was supposed to eat that much food, and then you kind of feel sick eating because you think it's too much.
You do, baby. I don't. I'm like, give me all the calories.
I don't anymore. I don't
Yeah.
struggle anymore. But back then I was like, really? I have to eat all this? That can't be right. Because my head kept equating the more food I'm putting in my mouth, I'm going to put on weight.
Yeah. And
That
what
was what
happened
it
though?
was. I put on 2 pounds in the process.
Yeah. So we went
That was
up
it.
from 1600 calories to 2100. And just to
Yeah.
give you some context as well, Anu is petite. You're about 5'1", is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah. 5'1".
And so 2100 calories for someone who's petite does sound like a lot. Like I'm 5'3". I mean, I'm like, give me all the calories and that's fine. But there was a time when I would have thought that amount of calories was a lot as well. And so we did it slowly but surely. And as Anu said, we did see like 2 pounds go up on the scale, which is normal when you are adding more food, and therefore you're also going to be adding more carbs, which hold more water in the body. It's not like necessarily just because the scale's going up that it's fat related. And in fact,
Mm-hmm.
we did start to see some body composition changes. Like as we were going up as well, some reduction in measurements, and we were
Yeah.
dialing in your strength training. And that was the other thing, that as we were really focusing on this, we don't just increase calories and just like hope for the best. The whole point of rebuilding our metabolism is so that we are focusing on doing that in alignment with enough steps, enough protein, and dialing in our strength training too. And so that's also something that we worked on together, wasn't it? Because
Yeah.
there was, you were already, like you said, strength training. You were actually doing some of my strength training before we started together. But there was some nerves around certain kind of pieces of gym equipment and stuff. Do you want to tell a
Yeah.
little bit more about that?
So like you see people using the big barbells and they are called the barbells, aren't they? The big ones. I
Yeah.
keep forgetting the names. And then
Even
using
barbell,
the Smith machines and things like that. And I was like, oh, there's no way that I'm ever going to be able to use these. And I remember one of them came up in the exercise. I would look for the alternatives. What's the alternative I could use? And that was when I was doing the strength training by myself. And then when I sort of went on the one-on-one, Kathy was really good in saying, right, this is how you do it. Just go in, try it with a lower weight, go how you go, and then send me a video of what you're doing. So that was a good thing to do, because obviously you send the video from all angles, and everyone else at the gym is recording themselves when they're doing stuff, so you don't have to feel worried, embarrassed or intimidated by it. And then Kathy would look at those videos and tell me, right, this bit's not quite right, or you're doing this bit really well. So you'd get a whole session so you know what you needed to improve on, which was great.
And now you're lifting all sorts.
Yes, now I don't care. Now it's like when I think back to a year ago, that I was too scared to even approach those machines and use those weights, and now I'm like, oh, it's no big deal. I have my wrist straps. Anyone looking at me would think, oh, she's an expert. She knows what she's doing.
Even though some of the things you found uncomfortable, you still just did it anyway.
Yeah,
You shared that it was uncomfortable. We talked through it, got some coaching around it, and you still went and did it anyway. And that's why you're in a completely different position now. And so
yeah,
let's talk a bit more about the nutrition side of things, because that move up to kind of 2100 calories was uncomfortable for you, but you still again did it. And you've like brought the mindset struggles and things like that, and we worked through them. And then once we kind of held that we held that at the top for like about 4 weeks, the 2100 calories, and then we started the fat loss phase. And it took a little bit of time to kind of figure out what was going to be the right deficit for you as well. But you want to talk a little bit more about kind of like how this was kind of different from, or just how this worked for you basically compared to things that you might have done in the past?
So initially, when we started off at 2100, we sort of went down a little bit, and we were doing it gradually. So we'd have a week or two at one weight and then go, then gradually take it down some more calories and then gradually take it down some more. But then she also made me do cardio, which was like, oh no, I have to do this too.
Well, how much
And
cardio did we do though? Because
I think we sort of started off with like 10 minutes
yes,
per
exactly.
session. So half an hour a week. And then I had to go up to like 15 minutes and I hate cardio, but I was like, okay, it's good for me. I have to do this. And you kind of get through it. But yeah, it was, eating the less food wasn't the problem. Sometimes I struggled with things like fiber. Fiber for me was really hard. Now I know what to do. I was telling Kathy about it the other day that I found that if you need to up your fiber, just have a bowl of bran flakes. It's brilliant. It really ups like 15 grams of fiber just there in a bowl of bran flakes. So I would recommend that. But yeah, what I also found really difficult was that even though I was cutting down my food, that scale wasn't changing. And to me, that was really important. And I think for a lot of women, it's really important because I was not seeing any difference on the scale at all. And I would just vent and say, well, nothing's happening. What's going on here? And then Kathy took a picture of me. You have to take photos. So Kathy see these photos. So she took a photo from me at the beginning to one I'd taken maybe the week before or that week. And she said, have you looked at these two pictures? And she put them side by side. And I looked at them and I was like, oh, yeah, I look a bit bigger in that one. And I look a lot smaller in this one. Even though I'm taking measurements, I wasn't really sort of comparing. I could see that it said, oh, -1, -2. And my clothes are fitting so much better, but it's still not registering in my head because I'm still looking at the scale and saying, well, I've only gone down a pound. That's not very good. But everything else had changed. So
Yeah.
that was the main thing.
And there's always, with all kind of health and fitness journeys, there's always so much nuance to it individually. But typically something that I do see when I work with women who are like less than 5'3", and I do have several women that I coach who are shorter, that sometimes the scale doesn't move as much. Like it's just kind of annoying for want of a better word. And it also depends on where we're at in terms of our body composition. Because if, for example, you are, while you're in a calorie deficit, losing some fat, but you are still building some muscle, you also won't see much of a shift on the scale.
Yeah.
And again, if we're only attaching to the scale and we're not looking at that in alignment with our measurements, with our progress photos, with how our clothes are fitting, and we're just going by the scale, it can be really discouraging.
Yeah.
But then also it's always an exploration in a deficit too, to figure out, well, what is going to put you into a deficit? And we did then actually manage to kind of hit that sweet spot with you, with the fact that we had your calories at about 1450 when we kind of got to that sweet spot. And we also then had your steps at 12,000. And we did add some extra cardio in because we chatted about, do we want to add more steps? And we were like, we don't really have time for that. So we did add that little bit of cardio in. And then things really started moving at a faster pace. And by the end of your fat loss phase, you were actually 10 pounds down.
Yeah.
Which, especially for someone who's 5'1", and who's already like, you didn't have a lot to lose either.
Yeah.
Was a significant change. You finished the fat loss phase with 10 pounds down, measurements changed, body completely changed, clothes feeling,
much better. Yeah.
And then after that, we focused on maintaining your results. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that kind of felt different for you, perhaps because you had already kind of done that before? Like, we'd already kind of had that phase before fat loss.
So this time now, again, you're gradually bringing your calories up so you can get to the maintenance that suits you. The first time I did it was obviously the priming part, and I found it really difficult because I couldn't get my head around eating more. And this time, because I knew, no, actually, the most I'm going to put on is 2 pounds, and I can live with that. And I probably did, but I did put on 2 pounds. But funnily enough, my clothes still fitted nicely and things were loose that were tight before. So it didn't make a difference. So now when I weigh myself on the scale, I don't actually care. I'm like, well, I know why my weight's gone up today. I had a Chinese yesterday, lots of salt in it, so my weight's going to go up. Silly things like that. Or I had a drink yesterday, so I know the scale's going to be slightly higher tomorrow. So, and then I know if I haven't got my steps in, if I haven't had my protein, if I haven't had enough sleep, the things that are important, if I haven't had my fiber, I'm not going to see a difference on the scale. It's just going to be constant. So this time round, it wasn't a chore. It was just a nice, easy thing to do. Right? It's like, great, I get to eat a bit more, and you actually enjoy it. And you're like, yes, I want to eat a bit more. What can I eat today? Like when you say fat loss and everyone wants to lose weight and they want to, you'll do the things where you starve yourself, and yes, you will be skinny and you may drop down 2 or 3 dress sizes, but the reality is you can't keep doing that forever. And I've been there, I've done it, and then everybody's like, oh, you only have to diet for 8 weeks and you'll lose what you're doing. That's so long. It is long. It's the long game. But guess what? I keep the weight off for longer and I look great for longer. And I prefer that than looking great for a week or 2 weeks. And then as soon as you start eating, you put it all back on again because your habits, that's that horrible cycle. And I'm not in that cycle anymore, which is what I love. I love going to the gym. I love walking. I love making sure I get my steps in. It's a whole new me. You just change, and it's not like, oh, I've got to go to the gym or I've got to do this. It just becomes part of your daily routine, and you just do it.
So thanks again to Sandra, Mara, and Anu for sharing their stories so openly. These 3 women, as you heard, were working hard, they were staying consistent, but they were just stuck in the wrong approach. And they managed to completely transform their bodies, their confidence, and their relationship with food and training by working through proper phases. This is what's possible when you stop dieting endlessly and you start giving your body what it actually needs and working with your metabolism to get and keep great results. We need to get out of this mindset that the answer is always just to eat less and to flog ourselves with cardio classes and to burn ourselves out by just always pushing harder and harder and harder. Instead, we want that smarter approach to nutrition and training, learning how to fuel ourselves well, learning how to look after our health in the process. And this is how we get to have a body that is much more responsive and create a lean, defined physique. So if their stories resonated with you and you're ready to create your own transformation with that phased approach to nutrition and proper strength training, then Lean Body Blueprint is the place to be, and enrollment opens on Monday, the 6th of April. The program starts on April the 13th. So as long as you are listening to this before April the 13th, you will be able to join us in that intake. Join the priority list if you haven't already, using the link in the show notes to get access to that early bird discount and also that exclusive bonus. And I cannot wait to welcome you inside LBB and help you build your most confident body too. Thanks so much for listening. As always, I will look forward to chatting to you more in the next episode.